We're here at the Royal York Hotel, beautiful hotel in downtown Toronto, at an international education summit called Whole System Reform that the Ministry of Education of Ontario is putting on to look at the education crisis in Ontario and find some solutions. Those of us involved with something called the One School System Network, a coalition of diverse groups and special interest parties, believe that the best whole system reform, the fairest solution, the way we can save hundreds of millions of dollars a year in this province, is to end the government-funded discrimination called the separate Catholic school system. I was just upstairs talking to the members of the ministry about that idea, and within about a minute or so, one of their henchmen came and kindly, to be sure, asked me to leave, telling me that it was a private function and I had no business being there. Now, I wasn't eating any food, I wasn't engaging with any delegates, I wasn't even in any of the rooms, and as soon as he saw me, he kindly asked me to leave. So I'm going to ask the concierge here at the desk of the Royal York whether I have any right to be there and interacting outside of the rooms with members of this important event, suggesting one idea that surprisingly isn't on the agenda for whole system reform. Oh, hi there. Yes, can you tell me where the Education Ministry is having their big summit right now?
Take the escalators to look us up in the... Sorry. Why are we being recorded?
Oh, it's for a little thing that we're doing. Yeah.
Unless you get permission from the actual public relations section.
Okay, I'll turn that off.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I mean, if they approve it, then there's no issue.
So the public relations of the hotel has to approve passing out literature at any place in the hotel?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
But I suppose people that have conferences would be able to do what they want in their area, right?
In their area.
Okay, thanks. Well, we effectively got kicked out doubly. First, we were told that we had no business being up in the big grand chambers there for the actual education summit, that it was they were not interested in our solution to their little problem. And now we just got told that the policy of the hotel generally is that public can't pass out material anywhere in the hotel without getting permission. In fact, we were filming a little exchange with the concierge for all of 5 seconds before she asked us to turn the cameras off, citing another policy. It's pretty hard to do any lobbying inside the hotel. I guess it's private and we'll have to just come back in a couple of hours to the actual rally.
Front of a struggle against Sharia court and all other faith-based arbitration in Ontario and demanded for one secular law for all, and we managed to get it. Thank you. And now we are the forefront of establishment of one secular school system for all, and we are going to get it. Defend the rights of children's safety, happiness, and welfare. Mr. McGinty, wake up and taste the bitterness the children are facing on a daily basis, especially children living in an influential religious family or so-called Islamic community.
My name is Justin Trottier. I'm here representing the Centre for Inquiry, an organization advancing social justice, equality, critical and scientific thinking, and secularism. We are a founding member of this One School System network, of which we're very, very proud. In late 2007, during the last provincial election, the people of Ontario overwhelmingly rejected the following. They rejected government-funded Muslim schools. They rejected government-funded Jewish schools. They rejected government-funded Sikh schools. They rejected government-funded Hindu schools. And they rejected government-funded schools for each and every religion and denomination in this great province, all except for one. In a surreal move, Premier McGuinty, the so-called education premier, condemned the Conservative Party platform calling for such funding, praising Ontario schools for their inclusivity, equality, and diversity. He then went on to promptly defend the discriminatory status quo in which the Roman Catholic religion receives our tax dollars for ensuring Catholic children are educated in their faith. This hypocrisy was recently echoed in a media release sent out by the Ontario Public School Boards Association promoting the International Educational Summit taking place right in front of me. That release declared, one of Ontario's greatest strengths is its diversity. We envision an inclusive education system in Ontario in which all students, parents, and other members of the school community are welcomed and respected. Let's keep dreaming. Maybe one day we will live in such a system, one that deserves such boasting. But that does not currently exist. Currently, not all students, not all parents, and not all other members of the school community are welcome or respected in 2 of the 4 school boards in this province. In the publicly funded Catholic schools, admission may and routinely is denied to high school students who are not Catholic or do not have proof of baptism. Teaching positions may be, and routinely are, withheld from non-Catholics who are not in good standing with their religion, as judged by, for example, a letter of reference from their pastor. This effectively bars non-Catholic teachers, Jewish, Muslim, and atheist teachers, for example, from working in roughly 1/3 of the schools in this province. In some cases, non-Catholics, Hindus, Sikhs, and others, have been given teaching positions simply because there were no Catholics for a given job, say music teacher. They were then removed from those positions when a Catholic became available. Across publicly funded Catholic school boards in Canada, teachers have even lost their job on what the Human Rights Act would call discriminatory grounds. In a district in Alberta, a bishop ordered the Catholic board to fire a popular and competent transgender teacher. Note that in Ontario, like Alberta, the Archbishop generally supersedes the Ministry of Education on any grounds at all related to theology and dogma, and that can be interpreted very broadly, let me tell you. No private company may engage in such privileged hiring practices or fire employees for sexual orientation, among other things. But here in Ontario, your tax dollars fund a public system that may do just that. A system where teachers and students must often pretend to be a religion that they are not to gain admission or employment. It's a system which is therefore engaging in what amounts to bullying people into a fake religiosity. This is what happens when we mix church and state and establish what amounts to a provincially favored state religion. But the value of secularism, that is church-state separation, lies in its protections for both the general public and the religions of its citizens. For example, closer to home in a 2002 case, Hall v. Powers, a gay student attending a Catholic high school was granted an injunction allowing him to bring his same-sex date to the prom. This was against the explicit wishes of the Catholic separate public school board. In this case, the court decided to interpret Catholic doctrine and rule that bringing a same-sex date to the prom was not a sin, therefore outside the domain of theology. Therefore, he could go to the prom with his gay boyfriend. Catholics should favor keeping the government at a distance, therefore. When there is a debate between theology and social justice, government subsidies of religious activities may lead to politicians trying to define what constitutes a religious practice, likely unwarranted intrusion on religious freedom. Therefore, a secular state benefits all citizens, religious or otherwise. I agree with the Premier in that building in front of me. Schools should be inclusive and diverse. I agree with the Premier. Schools must not segregate. I agree with the Premier that life is not segregated, that people live and work together, and so students should learn together too. But then why does our Premier conclude from this analysis that such important principles are exempt for only the publicly funded Roman Catholic school system? The Ontario Public School Board's media release went on to say the following: "We want to remove all barriers that impede student success. This includes discrimination, low self-confidence, and lack of respect. Research tells us, and so do our hearts, that students who feel welcome and accepted in their schools are more likely to excel academically." End quote. And ask yourself if such acceptance is likely, though, for Jewish, Muslim, or atheist students in a school bearing crosses and Catholic imagery on its walls and demanding participation in Catholic rituals. The Ontario Public School Board Association's media release then concluded with the following: "We believe that the vast majority of Ontarians support honesty, truth, civility, social justice, gender and cooperation, and a determination to combat racism, gender inequality, and environment degradation as values necessary for any kind of equitable, caring, and civil society. And we believe," they went on, "all schools in Ontario are committed to transmitting these values to their students." But are they really? The One School System Network and the Center for Inquiry and the other groups making up this coalition believe that these things too, and we are committed to seeing that every school in this province can one day imbibe these great and noble values. This can be done. The Constitution allows for it, as other provinces have demonstrated. Ontarians want it to be done, as polls consistently show 60 to 70% of the populace supporting the one school system solution, including many, many Catholics. Now let's send a message to those engaging in front of me in a broad-minded discussion that they've entitled Whole System Reform. For reasons of economics and genuine diversity, equality, and inclusivity, let us really engage in whole system reform. Thank you for being here with me today.
ThinkAgain TV is produced by Centre for Inquiry, Canada's premier venue for secular humanists, atheists, skeptics, and free thinkers.